Hi there, I'm back. Steve Kaufmann here. I'm back from my 20-day visit to Myanmar, Vietnam, and Korea. And I want to talk about visiting the country and learning the language. You often hear that in order to learn a language, you have to visit the country. And some people suggest that you get a phrase book before going there, and then when you get there, you'll be able to use these phrases. So I'll talk about my experience in 3 countries. Before going to Asia, I did buy a Vietnamese phrase book with some MP3, some files, some audio or CD, which I listened to. I don't know how much time I put in, a couple of hours. But I went to Myanmar first, so before, I didn't do anything before, but when I went there, I bought a little phrase book, Burmese. Okay, my experience is as follows. In Burma for 6 days, 7 days, I must have asked people 20 times. How do you say hello? How do you say goodbye? How do you say thank you? Maybe please. I mean, those are really the only words that you have a chance of being able to say if you're there for 6 days. I came out of it with maybe 2 that I can remember. Min-bai-la, which is hello, good day, whatever. And Jesu ba, I think, or Jesu tin-ba-deh, which is thank you. And ta-ta is goodbye. That's all. And I had to ask literally over and over again. I kept on forgetting. The only one that sticks after a while is Min-bai-la, because it's people say it to you all the time because they're so friendly. And I had to have a little thing in my mind like Min-bai-la, like in Chinese, to try and remember Min-bai-la. The point is, it's very difficult to pick up phrases. And looking in this phrase book, I mean, it was hopeless to me. How do you say, where is the, or something? Not a chance, unless the language is pretty close to a language that you already speak. So stimulating to be there, but in terms of actually trying to say something, and even if I were to say something so well, like hello, that they started to speak to me in their local language, I would be lost. So looking at a few phrases before you go there, in the case of Myanmar, useless. Vietnam, despite the fact that I but I did listen and try to get something, again, I ended up with 4 or 5 words. Xin chào, which means hello, come on, which means thank you, tam piet, which means goodbye, xin loi, which means excuse me, and I think that's about it. And that's after 7 days, lots of effort. I even bought a dictionary so that I could perhaps look up the word that I wanted to say. Useless. I even also went and bought this book to see how the Chinese characters are pronounced in Vietnamese. I found that there aren't nearly as many of those words in Vietnamese as there are in Korean or in Japanese, so the Chinese characters aren't that big of a help. So all I'm saying is, going there with a phrase book, hoping to be able to have any kind of meaningful communication, is a hopeless dream. All you can do is not communication, it's about saying something in their language, which it's like showing off, and very often they appreciate it. So if you say, come on, thank you in Vietnamese, people appreciate it more than if you just said thank you, sometimes. So it's not a major way of learning the language. Korean, of course, I've spent a lot of time in Korean, find Korean difficult. Despite all the time that I spent on Korean, when I first arrived in Korea, actually it was difficult to swing into action right away to try to use the language. I went to the subway and couldn't quite figure out how to use their vending machine, and I asked one of the employees of the metro system, and he couldn't really understand what I was saying. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Communication, 0. However, within 2 or 3 days of being there, of using it a little more here, a little more there, all of my passive learning got activated quite quickly. And in our meetup night, where we had both Koreans and foreigners who spoke Korean, I was able to speak quite a bit of Korean. And then subsequently, when I had to talk to taxi drivers, I had other situations where I was dealing with people who couldn't speak English. It was surprising how after a day or 2 or 3, the passive learning gets activated. So I sort of want to restate my conviction that If you want to go and benefit from visiting the country, make sure that you put in enough time. We're talking 6 months, significant investment in the language. And even then, when you get there, there will be a day or 2 or 3 before you can activate it. But then it's not just that you use it and hear it more. There's something about being in an environment where that's the language of communication, so that it's no longer just an academic exercise. That seems to, that sort of atmospheric, that environment has the effect of activating your language. So when you have put enough time in your language, by all means, visit the country. It'll do wonders for your language. If you haven't put enough effort into it ahead of time, visiting the country is still a pleasant thing to do, but you won't be able to communicate, and it's certainly you won't be able to rely on a phrase book. So I went a bit longer than my usual 3-4 minutes. We'll see if we can get a transcript done for this as well. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.